All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Sorry that we are late getting started. We had some technical issues. Seems to be the 2015. Still getting used to my new Mac computer. So welcome to our webinar, How to Bring the Joy Back into Baby Making. I'm Zara Haji from Yoga Goddess, and I am a fertility yoga expert and the founder of Yoga Goddess. In 2006, I developed the Moon Goddess Yoga and Meditation Program to help women around the world heal their relationships with their female bodies. And as a result, I've seen approximately 50% of my clients overcome infertility and conceive, half of them naturally and half through assisted reproductive technologies. And I'm so grateful to be here with you today. And before anything else, I just want to thank you for being here. I know that all of us have busy schedules, so it's a real honor to share space with you. And I'm just overflowing with excitement to share everything that Rae and I have prepared for you today, just in time for Valentine's Day. So I'd like to welcome my very special co-host, Rae Dolman, who's graciously agreed to be here with us. So welcome, Rae.
Hi, Zara. Thank you for having me, and thank all of you for joining us today.
You're so welcome. And Rae, can you just lower your screen a touch so that we can see you a little bit better?
Like that?
That's perfect. Yes. Okay. So what's amazing to me is that we're only into month 2 of the new year, and already 2 of my clients are newly pregnant. One of my clients who's over 40 just conceived in December naturally, and my other client who had an IVF procedure done in late January, just got the news yesterday that her numbers are doubling well, and so the pregnancy is thumbs up. So I'm so excited for both of my clients. And for also the other clients I had in 2014, it's been an amazing year because of about half of them will be also giving birth this year, and a couple of them actually already have had their babies. So if you know me and you've been following me for a while, you know that when I first developed Moon Goddess, the fertility yoga program, my focus wasn't exclusively on infertility. And what I really wanted most was to help women to heal their relationships with their female bodies, their reproductive organs, and with their feminine selves. But what I didn't expect is that so many women would show up to my classes because they were trying to conceive. So, I was expecting more about women struggling with PMS or difficult periods, ovarian cysts, and I had all of that. But what I loved most was the women who were trying to get pregnant, because I would get emails sometimes weeks or months later saying that they were pregnant. And that could be after years of trying. So that's when I decided, after 4 years of teaching Moon Goddess in person here in Toronto, I traveled to India and then to the Middle East. And when I was in India, I decided to record the entire yoga and meditation program, so women essentially anywhere in the world could heal her reproductive health, including her fertility. And the results have been truly astounding. Until today, about 50% of my clients get pregnant after working with me. Again, half naturally and half with assisted fertility treatments. And what all of these women have in common is they're not only focused on healing their bodies, but also healing their relationship with their partners. Like Elle, who I'll change her name to Linda, she got pregnant after 3 months of working with me at the age of 40. Her first child was conceived after 8 rounds of IUI, and she had a second pregnancy that unfortunately ended in a miscarriage. So that's when we started working together. And my main focus with Linda, was to nurture her relationship with her own body and with her husband. So rather than, controlling him or telling him what to do, I asked her to start relating to him, making their intimate connection a priority, and really appreciating him and everything that he did as a husband and a father to their first child. And I'm happy to say she just gave birth to a beautiful baby boy last week. And another client, I'll call her Sandy, had a difficult childhood. And part of her story was to be the one in control with her husband so she would feel safe. So we really worked on releasing the childhood trauma and establishing a more loving and intimate relationship with her husband. And after 6 months of working together and a total of 18 months of trying to get pregnant, she did in fact conceive naturally. And that was back in the summer. So one of my other clients, let's call her Andy, was turned away for IVF because she was told her FSH was too high at the level of 17, I believe it was. And after 3 years of trying, we worked together for 5 weeks, and she was pregnant in her very first cycle of trying at the age of 38. So what all these women and all the women I see getting pregnant after working with me have in common is shifting their focus from trying so hard to conceive, to get pregnant, and to shift that focus to really lovingly placing their attention on healing their bodies, healing their hearts, and also loving their partners in a deeper, more intimate way. And that's really what we're going to be talking about here today. How to love your partner in a way that deepens the connection between you, and how to love your partner in a way that's honoring of them, honoring of you, and honoring of the life that you are hoping to create. And that goes for you also, for all of you who are in assisted cycles. So, with my client who just found out her IVF worked yesterday, I worked with her regularly to improve her relationship with her husband, so she felt like she could turn to him as a source of secure support. And I really feel that Valentine's Day is just the perfect time for us not only to improve our relationships with our significant others, but to have fun while we're doing it. So as we begin our training, I would love to know who's joining us today. Now that we have everything up and running, if you want to share in the chat box a little bit about yourself and what you hope to learn from Rae and I today, and why you do that, please note that anything that we share here with you today is not intended as medical advice or substitutes for medical care, but rather to encourage new possibilities along your journey towards pregnancy. So go ahead and let us know that you're here, and if you would also like to share a little bit about yourself, what you hope to learn, and if you have a question along the way, feel free to enter it into the chat box, and we will do our best to get to your questions. So in today's training, you're going to learn the #1 way to feel closer to your partner and even feel stirrings of sexual excitement like you used to when you first met. The most fun and effective way to take the pressure off baby making, especially during ovulation, and improve your chances of conceiving even if you're in a treatment cycle. And this might not be what you expect to hear. And how to bring back the pleasure, the spontaneity, the play in your sex life. And I'm really excited because Rae has some amazing stuff to share with us, so that you can really enjoy the stress-relieving, connecting, and romantic experience of lovemaking, both within and outside baby making. Plus, first, we're going to share the top 3 ingredients of a great sexual encounter and 2 fun, sexy games that you can play this Valentine's weekend to surprise and delight your partner. And of course, all of this information that we're going to be sharing with you today can be applied anytime. I just like the fact that this week so many of us are focused on love, and love is in the air, and it's just a beautiful time to, at the very beginning of the year, to really start our, set our intention to re-energize the relationship that we have with our partners and set our sex life on a new course. So we invite you to really open up your heart to receive this information with the intention that it will shift things for you, and invite you to give yourself, and I invite you to give yourself the gift of presence. So most likely we'll be here for about an hour and maybe longer if we have questions to answer at the end. So if you can set aside anything that you're doing to be fully present, that would be wonderful. And make sure that you do stay on until the end, because we will be taking questions. And if questions do come up for you while you watch today, feel free to enter them in the chat box, and we'll do our absolute best to answer all of your questions. So my lovely co-host, Rae Dolman, she's a full-time mom and a part-time sex therapist. Rae's been counseling women, men, and couples at the Mount Sinai Hospital here in Toronto for over 10 years. And her story is really interesting. Her oldest child was conceived naturally after 3 months of trying, but when she tried to get pregnant with her second child, she had a miscarriage in the first trimester. And after sonohysterogram, they found that both her tubes were damaged and that Rae and her partner would need IVF in order to become pregnant again. So because of her own fertility journey, Rae really understands the difference between lovemaking and baby making. And so she's graciously agreed to be here with us today, just 2 days before Valentine's Day. And she's here to share her expertise and help you to bring back the joy in your baby making adventure. And the reason I asked Rae to co-host this webinar with me is when I met her at the Mind Body Fertility Conference last year that we both presented at with Julia Inakova. What spoke to me most about what Rae shared is her perspectives about lovemaking versus baby making are so closely aligned with what I share with my clients about bringing back the joy in your relationship with your partner. And in both of my approaches and Rae's approaches, we really want to help you return to love. And not only to the love that you share with your partner, but to really reconnect with the love that you have for yourself. And maybe, you know, it's really about rebuilding a new kind of loving relationship with your body. You know, maybe you're recovering from fertility treatments. Maybe you haven't had a really great long-standing relationship with your womb or your fertility. And so today is a really beautiful and powerful way to shift that relationship with your body. So I'd love to just give Rae a chance to tell us a little bit about herself. So Rae, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. I guess I'll start close to the beginning and just letting everybody know that I've always had a fascination for human psychology and human sexuality even more so. Growing up, it seemed that my friends were very comfortable talking to me about sex, and I'm not sure why that was. And sometimes they even told me more than I wanted to know. So I decided to pursue a career in sex therapy. And right now I have a broad practice out of Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. As you mentioned, I see individual men and individual women and couples together dealing with relationship issues and sexual issues that have to do with desire or arousal or orgasm or infertility. The work I do tends to be a little more goal-oriented and solution-focused than does traditional psychotherapy. I think that I really enjoy what I do, and I enjoy working with the couples that I meet that are on this journey.
Thanks so much, Rae. So before we jump into our training, I just want to make sure that you know you're in the right place today. So you're in the right place if you're really sick of being told to relax without any support for what you're actually going through. If sex is turned into more of a job than a joy during or near ovulation, and you've really lost that intimate spark with your partner, or if you're just burnt out from your fertility journey and you want to feel like yourself again, I really hear that a lot from the women I speak with, or if you're terrified that you'll never get pregnant, or maybe you've already experienced a loss and the thought of that happening again is terrifying. So, to protect yourself, you feel withdrawn from your partner or from the people that you've been close to in your life in the past. If you want to increase your chances of getting pregnant naturally or within a treatment cycle, you're in the right place. And if you're concerned about the impact of stress of trying so hard and how it might be impacting your ability to conceive or sustain a natural pregnancy, if you're thinking about or you're scheduled for an assisted cycle and you want to increase your chances, and you're in the right place if you're ready to just have some fun. If you want to take a break from having sex on a schedule and just enjoy the weekend, then you're definitely in the right place. So in this training, we're going to share with you how and why reconnecting with your partner sexually in a way that feels loving, connecting, and intimate can not only support you in getting pregnant, but also to improve the health of your relationship and your overall mental and emotional well-being. And after today's training, you will leave with an understanding of how to take the pressure off trying to make a baby and really open up the space in your heart and in your womb to rediscover the love that you share with your partner. And from that place of love, open your body to receive a baby, no matter what your age is. Plus, we'll be sharing how you can take away what you've learned from us today and begin applying it in your daily life with your partner, both inside and outside the bedroom and in your daily relationship life. And I think that kind of gives us an overall perspective about what we're going to be doing today. And the other thing, what I want to do is towards the end of the webinar, what I'll do is also share with you the deeper information that I share with my clients who work with me privately, and sort of take you through the difference between the masculine and feminine approach that I often see women who are on the fertility journey really struggle with. So, part of that is learning how to connect with your sensual femininity. And because so many of us are really connected to our yang or dominating masculine energy, but really disconnected from the yin or receptive feminine energy. So what that means is, when we're in the feminine, there's a sense of spaciousness and relaxation and receptivity, but most women are really stressed out and they're trying to get it all right and do everything perfectly. And we really need the balance of the feminine to relax and to let go. But, we don't know how to do that. And it's really infuriating when people just tell you that you need to relax because they're not actually supporting you in how to do that. So that's really the missing link for women who are trying to conceive. And so I'll talk about that more towards the end of the webinar. So, I'd love for you to stay until the very end so you can get all the information that we have. So I'd love to start off with the number one way to feel closer to your partner and even feel stirrings of the sexual excitement that you felt when you first met. So Rae, could you take us through that?
Sure. I think in order to feel those butterflies like we did when we first met, there needs to be a little sense of risk, a sense of newness or novelty, and a little bit of space. So just like a fire needs oxygen and air, so does the relationship. And I'm going to give you a concrete example of what I mean. So if you go out with your partner and some friends, you might have the opportunity then to watch your partner. Maybe they're a really good dancer or they're funny and they tell a great joke. And you can actually view them through your friend's eyes, through a different lens. And that's what I mean about different space and giving some space. And you can think to yourself, wow, like I've got this really great catch. And so that's the kind of thing that needs to be built back into the relationship in order to get that spark back, in order in order to get those butterflies back.
So I love that example because when you shared that, I immediately thought about, watching my partner on the dance floor and really getting that kind of sense of, wow, yeah, look at him, you know? So I think that a lot of us can resonate. I even asked a friend of mine that I think it was yesterday when I was talking to her, and it just really makes sense. Sometimes we need to see that from that sort of new, fresh perspective. And it's like beginner's mind. If you take it back to the yoga place or yogic perspective. So thank you, Rae. I really like that real life example. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, if you could tell us, Rae, because you talked about the butterflies and the excitement. So can you tell us a little bit more about the difference between what we know as sexuality and the difference between that and eroticism? I think you hear about that book, 50 Shades of Grey, and the movie and all that. So I think it's sort of in our cultural awareness, but I don't know if many of us know what it actually means.
Sure, absolutely. So sexuality is more rooted in nature. All animals have sexuality. Eroticism is sexuality plus imagination plus curiosity plus a bit of the forbidden. So that's sort of the 50 Shades of Grey piece, I would guess. Eroticism is more politically incorrect. And so getting the spark back is also learning about being more erotic and tapping into your own imagination and creativity, and then sharing that with your partner.
So, because the point originally was like the number one way to feel closer to your partner. So how do you feel like the difference between intimacy and eroticism can help us feel closer to our partners?
Well, sometimes intimacy or love it's sort of expected, it's comfortable, it's there, while eroticism or desire, there's more distance, and so it's about not taking things for granted. It's about that beginner's mind. It's about cultivating those kinds of things.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rae. And can you tell us, sort of associated to that, how to really bring back the pleasure and the spontaneity and the play into our sex lives instead of, I think for a lot of people it becomes really routine, especially if you've been married or together for a number of years. And how to really get back into enjoying, that the connecting and the romantic experience of lovemaking, and also the stress relieving aspect, because I know that there's that part of it too.
Right. So you're absolutely right. When people are trying to conceive or have been together for a long time, but sex can get boring. And when people are trying to conceive, it becomes all about procreation. It becomes all about baby making, and that's it. It's very goal oriented. It's very time pressured, so sex has to happen during ovulation. And it's often not very sexy. It's, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, in and out, you're done. And, women may only want to have sex when they're ovulating. Men may feel used for their sperm. And in fact, I've had clients tell me, one client tell me that it felt like their body was being donated to science while they're still alive.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, and it's like, when I heard you say that in the presentation last year, I thought, what an incredible quote, because sometimes it can really feel that way, especially if you're going through fertility treatments and you can't get answers. And I know a lot of clients with unexplained infertility, and it just can feel like what a perfect way to snapshot it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very powerful quote, and one of my favorites. So on the other hand, though, lovemaking is more about recreation. So it is more pleasure-centered. It can be more spontaneous. Hopefully it's more fun. It's more playful. And when a couple makes love without the pressures of creating life, it can be connecting activity for both of them, stress relieving, as you mentioned, and even romantic.
Hmm.
So do you want me to talk a bit more now about how to cultivate romance?
I'd love that. That was going to be my next question.
Okay, perfect. So adding a romance back into the relationship, the first step, I think, is really just making time for one another. We live in such a busy world, and we're doing things, more than one thing at once, and we're on our devices, and we're busy working, and some of us have one or two kids already, and they take up a lot of time. And I think it's really important to carve out time for our partners, to show them that they're important, that sex is important. That's a really powerful message that can be sent. And I think it's also important to woo your partner, to pretend like you're trying to get them again. Like they're not a sure thing. So going on dates and trying something new together, those are all nice ways to bring romance back. I think kissing and hugging and cuddling in and outside the bedroom are important tools that you can use. Sending love notes, either through snail mail or texts and flirty emails is a good idea. Even leaving a stick-it note on the bathroom mirror or the kitchen fridge, if you don't have young people reading those notes, can be a fun idea. Giving your partner a small present, like a gift card to their favorite store, or buying them a book or flowers or chocolate, like old school romance. You might also want to pamper your lover by bringing them some tea in bed, or maybe setting up their favorite movie and watching it with them. For my husband, it would be cleaning up the piles around the house. And his little show of affection for me is putting the cover back on the barbecue. Just small things that you know your partner will appreciate, and using your imagination and creativity to do that.
Yeah, I personally really love, I've heard the idea of leaving like a sexy message, when someone's taking a shower and everything steams up, and you can write something on the shower door or on the mirror, or like you said, sending text messages that maybe there's a lead up to coming home that night. And I just think there's so many things that we can become creative with once we actually get into that place and open up our imaginations again. So thank you, Rae. I'm just wondering if you can share also, like, how would this help in a treatment cycle for those couples who, have sort of graduated to trying to get pregnant from the, natural cycle to a treatment cycle?
So, sure. Well, if you're meeting your partner's needs, they're going to be more willing to meet yours. So, we're going to try to create a more positive reinforcement loop. And by building this culture of generosity, you can hopefully break the negative feedback cycle that you've sort of set up, where you might dread sex during ovulation, so you avoid it, and when you avoid it, the anxiety builds, and so you're less likely to want to have sex. But if sex becomes more fun and pleasurable and less of a job, then you can look forward to it. We want to avoid things that aren't fun, and we want to do things that are fun. So we want to try to make love making and baby making as fun as possible. I think sometimes suspending disbelief can be helpful as well. So even just pretending that you're not trying to make a baby, there's so many reasons to make love. You could do it because you want to feel closer to your partner, because you want to have an orgasm, because there's a power failure, because you're bored, because the Canadians won the gold medal hockey game, you know, and every one of those reasons is just as valid. And so pick another reason to have intercourse with your partner other than pregnancy or trying to conceive. And I think also I'd want to take this opportunity also to let people have some just basic education about sexual interactions. I think a lot of people don't know that it's actually normal not to have mutually satisfying sexual encounters every time. So we are often taught through the media, and certainly with this 50 Shades of Grey show, that sex is amazing and there should be fireworks 100% of the time. But according to a sex researcher named Barry McCarthy, actually 40 to 50% of sexual encounters are mutually satisfying. And it's normal that 5 to 15% of sexual encounters can actually be described as mediocre or unsatisfying. Now, it looks like you have frozen. I don't know whether I've frozen as well. Are you there, Zara? Looks like we're having some more technical difficulties. Just bear with us if you can hear me. I'm not sure whether you can or not. Oh, so I don't know whether I should keep going. And talk a little bit about sort of the stress relieving properties. So if you're having sex, and certainly if you are orgasmic, neurotransmitters can be released during sex that can help reduce stress and increase happiness and emotional connection with your partner. And I know that Zara also wanted to ask me about fun and effective ways to take the pressure off of baby making, especially during ovulation, and so that you can improve your chances of conceiving, even in a treatment cycle. So, and this is the piece I think that Zara was surprised about. Basically, I want you to shift from having intercourse to discourse. So from sex to talking. I think co-creating the sex life that you want with your partner is part of the fun and one of the most powerful ways that can help to bring the spark back. Decreased sexual desire can occur with increased intimacy because familiarity replaces the erotic. And this sort of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier on in the call, where safety and reliability or love can cancel out novelty and mystery. And to cultivate eroticism, we need to risk and use our imaginations. We need to feel alive, and vitality, as I mentioned earlier, also thrives on the forbidden and the mysterious and the politically incorrect. So the cliche of trying new things with your partner, both in and outside the bedroom, it doesn't actually have to be something sexual, is something that I would really encourage and helps to keep interest in the relationship. And so this tension between love and desire can be I think, well illustrated by a quote by a guy named Jack Moran, who spoke about how we're most intensely excited when we're a little off balance or uncertain and poised on the edge between ecstasy and disaster. Hello, welcome back.
I find it amazing that Rogers decides to go offline in the middle of the webinar.
Oh, I'm glad you managed to fix it pretty quickly, although now you're frozen again. Oh no. So maybe
so we get in.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
I think you're back, even though you're not back.
Okay.
There you are.
So Rae, how far did we get in the sex ed?
So I was just talking. I was talking about the difference again between love and desire, and sort of the dichotomy between love, like the having and the comfort and the closeness that I talked about before, and then desire, which is the wanting and elusive and distance. And I mentioned the quote and talked about how this also alludes to making ourselves vulnerable to our partners.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, sometimes really difficult when we're feeling so overwhelmed. So I think that's a really important point. Thank you. So, and tell us, Rae, like, you know, people tell you to relax all the time. And so I imagine that hopefully there's some stress relief, you know, connected to lovemaking. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that also while you were on your little vacation. But when you have sex, it can release endorphins, which help to moderate pain and make you feel good. Dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters that's released, and it's one of the ones that's in the antidepressant medication, so it can make you feel happier. Oxytocin is released, and that's sort of dubbed the cuddle hormone, so that can make you feel closer to your partner as well. And so there's neurochemistry behind having sex as well that can help to make you feel more relaxed and closer to your partner.
Okay. So how about we go to the next point, which is, I think, one of the most important ones. You know, how do we actually take the pressure off baby making, especially around ovulation, and improve, you know, I feel like indirectly improve our chances of conceiving, whether you're in a treatment cycle or trying to conceive naturally. So can you give us some insight into the most fun and effective way to do that?
Well, I think adding anticipation is a good thing to do, and I started talking a little bit earlier about the difference between intercourse and discourse, and so I think some people have a hard time even figuring out what they want, and so it's important for people to take some time to look inside and to think, you know, what do I want? What do I like? I think as women, we're often socialized to please our partners and to do what they want, and we don't really take into account what we want. And so it's a nice exercise to just sort of look inside and think, what does bring me pleasure? Mm-hmm. And how can I take responsibility for my own sexual pleasure? And then how can I tell my partner what I want in a way that can be heard and followed through on?
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's not necessarily always comfortable to talk about what we want and what we need. And so can you kind of walk us through I statements? You know, I generally try to share that with my clients as well, and maybe give us some like language around how to talk about what could potentially be a little bit, you know, awkward or uncomfortable.
Sure. So I think that's really important. So instead of generalizing and saying you never or you always, try to speak from the I. It really turns me on when you let me stick my finger in your ear. Um,
I
or,
love that
can we try that? Would you be willing to let me stick my finger in your ear? And so, um, and that I mean, I think you could even start with humor. I think humor is a great way to start talking to your partner about sex, and then say, no, really, I just want a back massage.
one.
um, but I think it is important to start with I, not with you, and try not to be blaming, and to really to take responsibility for what it is you want, and to say, it would really turn me on if we could try this. We work's okay too.
Okay, great. And you know how you said about sometimes it's hard to actually know what you want? So could
Mm-hmm.
you tell us a little bit about how to get more in touch with what our pleasure is?
Well, the games and activities that I'm going to share at the end are an amazing way to do that. So maybe that's the hook to keep people hanging on. Um, but I think it is, you might want to read something, you might want to watch something, you might want to see something, you might have heard something that you thought might be nice and you wanted to try, if you don't know. And or it's just about, you can, yoga and meditation is a good way to sort of just go inside yourself and to think, my partner's never rubbed my feet. I think I'd really like that. I like that when I go for a massage and the massage therapist rubs my feet. I wonder if my partner would be willing to do that. And so even if it's not traditionally thought of as sex, if it brings you pleasure, I think that should be brought into the bedroom.
Oh, thank you, Ray. I really, really like that example. So the other thing you mentioned, besides talking about your likes and dislikes is, sometimes you don't really feel so sexy. So like becoming aware of the times where you feel more attractive and less attractive, I imagine that would also be really helpful.
Absolutely. So to think about whether it's time of month or time of day, when do you feel the most attractive? When do you feel the least attractive? And maybe it's not even a time of month or time of day. Maybe it's when you put on makeup, or when you wear a certain outfit, or when you feel confident. What is it? What are the ingredients that make you feel good about you?
Hmm. Yeah, I really like that. And so how about we go into that, Ray? What are the top three ingredients of a great sexual encounter?
Well, there's so many, and I think that probably everybody might have a different three, but I think that anticipation, we talked about that, pleasure and fun are sort of the three necessary ingredients for a great sexual encounter.
And can you walk us through what kind of sexual encounter we might want to be able to orchestrate on like an ovulation day?
Sure, absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, I think it's important, instead of saying, I'm ovulating now, let's get going, to actually invite your partner to play. And then if you can decide whether it's your turn or your partner's turn to set the mood, whether that's with lighting or music or food or temperature or activities, and then to try to incorporate something new, even if it's something small, whether it's adding a head massage or a foot massage or a back rub, whether it's trying to talk dirty to your partner, or whether it's looking at erotic pictures or an R-rated movie, or whether it's being in a different room, or turning the lights on if they're usually off, or turning the lights off if they're usually on, or keeping clothes on if they're usually off, or like whatever it is. And then not jumping right into intercourse. I think taking your time. And again, this is very sort of dovetails nicely, I think, with the work that you do, is that it's about noticing your sensations. It's about listening to sounds and sights and touch, and what does your partner look like? What do they feel like? What do they taste like? And really being in the moment. And then the idea again of suspending the disbelief. Like, so pretend you're not trying to conceive and that you're there because you want to feel good and you want to make your partner feel good and you want to make love.
Yeah, I love that. What about a non-ovulation day? Because, sometimes when you're not, in the window of conception, maybe sex can often be eclipsed because you can't get pregnant.
Right. So very often people will cram sex into 3 days or into the 1 week, and they'll have it every other day for the whole week. I would recommend, and then they don't do it again for the whole rest of the month. And I think that that's a shame. I would recommend having sex on non-ovulation days. And by sex, I don't necessarily mean intercourse. I think that it's important to expand your sexual menu. Maybe you just want to experiment with manual touching or oral touching or toy touching or mutual masturbation. And this can then help you to take the focus off of procreation again and put it back onto recreation. And I might even put a ban on intercourse on non-ovulation days. This can really help make the focus on giving and receiving pleasure, no matter what that looks like. And again, to take your time, and then maybe try something new, maybe one of these games that we're going to talk about, and yeah.
Beautiful. So I think that it could be actually quite, interesting if you put a ban on penetration, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that you'd have to get really creative then.
Yeah, I call that outer course.
Yeah, instead of intercourse. That's good. Okay, so I personally feel like this is the best part of the whole webinar. That's what I loved about what you shared at the conference last year, like the sexy card game and the sensate focus. If you could walk us through both of those, and then if you could also tell us about the sexual stoplight. I really felt like for those of us who need an icebreaker about, how to talk about what we like and dislike sexually, that one's really great.
Absolutely. So this is a card game, so you need a deck of cards, and you'd want to remove the jokers. And you will also need a timer. You can use a smartphone. They're great. And what you would do is you assign the suits any activity that you and your partner agree on. So you'd have to think of 4 activities. So for example, hearts could be kissing, diamonds could be massage. You can see I'm a big fan of massage. Clubs could be manual stimulation, and then spades could be oral stimulation. And then if you pick a 2 through 8, then you'd have to do that activity for 1 minute. And if you pick a 9 through king, then you would do that activity for 2 minutes. And if you pick an ace, it's any of the 4 activities that you decided, and the length of the time is 3 minutes. And then the object of the game is to get whoever gets 10 minutes and at least 1 card in each of the 4 suits is the winner. And the winner then can pick the prize. So it can either be more of what you are already doing or something different. And again, it doesn't have to be sexual. It could be breakfast in bed the next day. It could be making lunches for the kids, whatever you, or it could be intercourse. But generally, this game, I've called it outer course, and it's to help sort of explore the other the sensual and erotic, and helps you to slow things down. The next.
So I just want to interrupt you for a second. For those who are furiously taking notes, don't worry. We're going to send you a handout at the end of the webinar so that you can actually start to plan your weekend and maybe try out the card game with your partner. So go on, Rae.
Sure.
Thanks.
So the next activity is sensate focus, and it was originally a Masters and Johnson exercise, and it's non-demand, non-sexual touching, and it's basically each of you taking turns giving and receiving erotic touch. And it's a full body exploration, front and back, head to toe, and you can decide where you want to start. But you avoid the breasts, the buttocks, and the genitals, and you focus on your own feelings, no matter what your role is. So if you're the giver, you think about what it feels like to touch your partner. And if you're bored, maybe what would happen if you strip that boredom away? What would be left? And if you're the receiver, your only goal is to accept the pleasure. Don't do it if it's uncomfortable or hurt. And each person would get 20 minutes of time, and then hopefully you can set aside 10 minutes to talk about it after. So I really liked it when, I really didn't like it when, next time can we do it this way, or can we focus more on that? And I actually prescribe this slightly differently than Masters and Johnson. They had it without any communication during. And I would encourage you actually to try it two ways. So once without much talking, unless you're afraid or in pain, and once with sort of more of a running commentary. And this can really help people get more comfortable communicating their sexual wants. So yeah, that feels good. Use a little more pressure. Use a little less pressure. Can you move to the right? Can you move to the left? Oh yeah, stay there. And that can help you sort of open up in a way that is more erotic than it's more sensual than erotic, and you don't necessarily talk about, as I said, the breast, buttocks, or genitals, and it can help you learn to talk about these things with your partner.
And I think that, like, when I heard you first talk about the sensate focus, and avoiding, you know, I guess the traditionally sexual parts of the body, I thought that actually it would feel kind of erotic, you know, because you are purposely trying to avoid certain parts of the body. And so I can imagine that would feel like a real turn on as well, because there's this sense of, I don't know, maybe anticipation.
Yes, I think so. So yeah, I mean, and some people find they get turned on, right? Like, and this exercise is good for all kinds of sexual dysfunction. A guy who's having trouble getting erections can then not worry about whether or not he has an erection, and quite often he might end up with one because it is a little bit teasy, you know, like you know, you get close but not really there, and hopefully you can also, as you use the word intention at the beginning of the webinar, I think that's a beautiful word and very appropriate for this exercise. Is if you have the intention of having a sensual touch and having and trying to excite your partner and trying to please them with your fingertips, then that can make this this exercise even better.
Okay, thank you so much, Rae. And then if you could also take us through the sexual stoplight.
Absolutely. So in this exercise, I actually got a piece of paper, and I'll show you. I don't know if you can read this. I'll put it, whoops, there we go. So you fold a piece of paper in three, and you label it at the top green, amber, and red. And then you write a list in each of those of all of the things in the green that you want to happen during every sexual encounter. So maybe that's sticking your finger in your partner's ear, or kissing, or hugging, or whatever it is that you want just about every single time. And then in the amber column, you're going to write things that you want to do sometimes, but you're not going to want to do every single time. So that might be intercourse, that might be oral sex, that might be sticking your finger in your partner's ear. And then you're going to have a red list. And in this list, this is a no-go list. This is, for right now, you're not interested in doing the things on this list at all. So it could, let's take the 50 Shades example. It could be spanking. It could be tying up. It could be sticking your finger in your partner's ear. Whatever it is that you do not want happening during lovemaking goes in the red column. And then you can take this, hopefully you do it separately from your partner, and then you share. And everything that overlaps in the green, you can start doing right away. And then you can add in the stuff in the amber, and if you have stuff on your green or amber list that's on your partner's red list, you're going to hopefully respect that they don't want to be doing that right now, or maybe not ever, and you may need to let it go, or to talk about it, or hope that your partner sometime down the line is going to change their mind.
Yeah, I think that, you know, sometimes it's difficult to have a conversation out of nowhere. And so this is such a great way where you can maybe have an agreement where you might show the exercise to your partner and say, I'd really like to do this, and maybe like do it at the same time and sit down and do the piece of paper together, and it's almost like a mutual discovery. I can imagine that would be really helpful. Is this something you do with your clients?
Absolutely. It's something that I would assign as homework. So I would suggest that they go home and that they make some time to do it. As you said, either together but separate, or I guess there are some couples that might want to make the lists together, and that could be okay. But I find that it gives you the opportunity to be a little more honest if you're completing it when your partner isn't there with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. So, Rae, I'm just amazed at how much great information that you've shared with us today. So thank you so much for that. I really hope that all the ladies and whoever else is joining us on the webinar can really take what you've learned today and go ahead and have a really great weekend with your partner. Not just this weekend, but I hope that you can really take this information and start applying it in your relationship. And, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of our webinar, I also love to incorporate like the wisdom and the understanding of how to connect with your sensual femininity into the work that I do with my clients. And so I want to just sort of give you a really brief overview of how we can take what you've learned today a little bit further. If you know a little bit about my work, you know that I help women to take the focus off of what's not working and really put their attention back on reconnecting with their bodies. And really, there is so much wisdom in each of our bodies as women, and potentially you are not really aware of what your body is capable of or how to connect with it. So I'll sort of give you a sense of what I mean by that. As a woman, you actually follow a monthly rhythm, and the way to connect to that is through your menstrual cycle. And you can really get into the flow of your intuition, your sensuality, your sexuality, your creativity, and basically everything that has to do with a woman, including your fertility. And so when you're able to use your cycle and connect with your cycle from this expanded perspective, you can really bring a different kind of awareness to your intimate relationship with your partner. And so this is what I would like to kind of invite you to look into. It's a program that I created called Sensual Magic. And in the Sensual Magic program, you really get to learn how to play with your feminine goddess energies, as I like to call them, so you can really show up more fully and beautifully in your relationship with yourself and your partner. And more specifically, you learn how to work in harmony with your hormones to really enhance the love, the intimacy, and the playful seduction. And part of, communication with our partners is about being more in tune with our own bodies. And I think that as a woman, once you understand your hormonal changes and how you feel premenstrually, and what turns you on and what turns you off, and how to communicate that effectively with your partner, or what turns you on when you're in close to ovulation, and how to get in touch with your heart and be in a more loving place when you're connecting intimately with your partner. So it's not about the goal-oriented, trying to get pregnant, but really connecting from your heart. So all of these different aspects of connecting with your sensuality is such an important part for women who are trying to conceive. And, just a little story I wanted to share with you. A friend of mine was going through egg freezing. And even though she was on drugs to stimulate her follicles, every time she went to the doctor, there weren't enough follicles to do a retrieval. And so the next weekend before her appointment, she and her partner literally locked themselves away and had passionate sex all weekend. And when she went back to the doctor on, the following Monday, he actually asked her what she'd done, because suddenly she had more follicles than she'd had in over 3 months of doing shots. So there really is something to being more in touch with your own sensuality and sexuality. So I invite you to check out the link that is on the webinar page. So if you click through, you'll be taken to yogagoddess.ca/feminine-power. So that's yogagoddess.ca/feminine-power. And you'll see what's included in the Sensual Magic class. So you'll get 6 75-minute audio classes that you can download digitally to your favorite device. And in the first class, we'll explore the magic of being a woman, and you'll learn how your body generates the goddess energy of the go-getter, the lover, the enchantress, and the dreamer, and that's through the 4 phases of your menstrual cycle, and basically how to map those hormonal changes in every week of your cycle. And in the second class, you'll learn how to let go of the masculine controlling energy that we so often, use in our workplace, and really play with your feminine power. So you'll learn how to let go of dominating and controlling, so that, when you come home, you can really channel the playful energy of the go-getter. And she really helps you spice up the fun factor and play with your partner. So the trick is not to default into project management mode, but to really have fun and play. And in the third class, you learn how to take advantage of your sexual surge and rekindle passion and intimacy. So it's all about how your sex. So again, sorry. I'm getting a question to restate the URL. So it's yogagoddess.ca, and then it's /feminine-power, so feminine-power. And if you click through, you should be able to get to it right from the live page. So in the third class, you learn how your sex drive and your heart are intimately connected, and how to use that connection to build intimacy with your partner. So in this phase of your cycle, it's your fertile phase, and your ability to relate and communicate is actually at its optimum. So we focus on enhancing partner communication, and you can also channel this energy to enhance your relationships at work and with the rest of your family. So the trick is really to not overcommit during your ovulatory phase, because your feel-good hormones are at their peak. So you don't want to say yes to too many things, because you're getting ready to go into the downtime of your cycle premenstrually. So in the fourth class, that's what we were talking about, is how to connect with your partner. in your premenstrual phase, which is often the time where we feel emotional and vulnerable. And so we want to be able to channel this unpredictable, sometimes wild PMS energy to create compassion and closeness with yourself and your partner. So we want to harness how to harness this gift of bewitching and enchanting, that witchy kind of energy of the premenstrual phase. And you can actually be your most seductive during this phase of your cycle. So, being able to explore the erotic would be a really great time in your premenstrual phase once you learn how to connect with the enchantress energy. And really the trick here is to take out time for reflection and self-care, and to really be able to go inside of yourself and learn about, what are your likes and what are your dislikes, and how to share those with your partner in a way that makes you feel safe and empowered. And then in the 5th class, we work with your menstrual energy, which is really your body's call to rest and relaxation, and how to harness that relaxation to build intimacy with your partner. So, because you naturally feel more relaxed and at ease and receptive during your menstrual phase, you really have access to a sensual spaciousness that can make you very attractive to your partner. But the trick is really listening to your body's call to slow down and move into more inward place. That makes you more receptive to intimacy and also awakens your intuition. So, plus there's one final class about integrating all of the sensual magic principles, where you can listen to a live Q&A between myself and past participants. And just to let you know, there's a few bonuses which I'll kind of let you read through over on the sales page at, I'll just repeat it one more time, yogagoddess.ca/feminine-power. And in each class, I'm joined by relationship expert Shannon Cross, who shares her perspectives on how to apply these principles in your partnership, in your marriage, and she has some beautiful insights that she shares on each of our classes. So I'll let you read through the rest of the details on the page, the sales page. And the link I gave you will actually give you a 50% off for joining us on the webinar with Rae. And we really hope that you can take all the information that we've shared with you here, and then if you want to take it further with the sensual magic principles, I'd love to hear how your weekend goes and how everything unfolds for you. And of course, Rae, I really want to thank you for everything. You've shared so generously of your time and your all of your tips and tricks and knowledge and wisdom, and I just want to thank you so much for taking out the time to be here with us today and educating us, because most of us probably didn't have a sex education that was as exciting or interesting as what we talked about today.
Well, thank you, Zara. Thank you so much for organizing this, and thank you all for watching it, and I apologize again for the technical glitches, and it was lovely to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much, Rae. So thanks again, everyone, for being here today, and happy Valentine's Day. I'd love to hear from you. Oh, sorry, one more thing before we go. There was a question that came in, Rae, and if you could just briefly address it about, some people think that you can start your period by having intercourse. So could you just talk a little bit about that? For a woman who potentially has a short cycle and she doesn't want to incite menstruation to start?
There is absolutely no scientific evidence to show that that's the case. I think there are people that believe it or know it to be true for themselves, but it's not a proven fact.
Okay, so really we shouldn't worry too much about bringing on our periods by having intercourse. It wouldn't necessarily start earlier, would you say?
That's exactly right, yes.
Okay. And we talked about, I mean, we'd already mentioned how important it is to have sex on non-ovulation days, even though you can't get pregnant at that time. Um,
Well, and you know what? It's not, it's statistically unlikely, but it's possible that you can get pregnant almost throughout your entire cycle. So I wouldn't necessarily discount that. Like, there are anecdotal evidence that talk about people having sex at other times. There's some sperm that can last, up to 5 days in utero. And so even if you're not, that's why a lot of unplanned pregnancies happen. And so I know a lot of people on this call are having trouble, but it's certainly possible to get pregnant on non-ovulation days.
okay, thank you so much for sharing that, Ray. I guess I never thought about it, even though it's not statistical, that of course there's exceptions to every rule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that's it for questions. I'm not seeing anything coming in, so I'm going to assume that there are no other questions. Um, so thank you again, all of you who came out and, or give me a second, maybe there is something. No? Okay, I think we're good. So thank you again for all of you who joined us live, and all of you who will be watching later on tomorrow or over the weekend. I hope you really got everything that you hoped and expected out of our talk today with Rae Dolman, who's a sex therapist and as well as an individual and couples therapist here in Toronto. From me, Yoga Goddess Sarah Haji, just want to bid you farewell and a lovely Valentine's weekend. So thank you and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.